I found out about the affair on Christmas night, with his unlocked iPhone sitting on the kitchen counter and our 20-day-old daughter sleeping beside me. But the cruelest blow didn't come from Ryan. It came from his own mother's mouth. "She's everything I always wished you could be." Hearing those words changed something inside me forever. My name is Kayla Morgan. I'm 27 years old, a mother of 2, and this is the story of how I completely lost myself before I finally found my way back. But to understand how I ended up here, we need to go back to the beginning, because every nightmare starts as a dream, and mine began when I was 18. I was living alone in a tiny studio apartment in Tampa, Florida. I'd left my mom's house at 17, determined to build a life completely different from the chaos I grew up in. My father was a truck driver with a drinking problem who used to beat her. When I was 8, my mom was diagnosed with stomach cancer. I had to grow up fast, way too fast. At 14, I started working in a youth employment program. By 15, I'd landed a job at a law office. By 18, I was already earning my own money and studying pre-law. I was that girl everyone said would go far. Ambitious, independent, unshakable. I had survived domestic violence, my mom's cancer, my parents' divorce when I was 15, and severe depression with panic attacks. I truly believed nothing could break me. Then, on a warm September night in 2015, everything changed. I walked into a bar near campus with some friends, and that's when I saw him for the first time. Ryan Mitchell. He was 23, tall, confident, and had that kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Our eyes met, and in that instant, I felt something I'd never felt before. It wasn't love at first sight. It was recognition, like he was the mirror I'd been searching for all along. We started a chaotic, addictive situationship. During the day, we were both seeing other people. He'd see me with someone at a party. I'd see him kissing someone else at a bar. It was a game. Who could make the other more jealous? Who cared less? But every single night, without fail, we'd end up together at my apartment. The chemistry was explosive, almost dangerous. Looking back now, I can see that all the red flags were waving frantically in the wind. But when you're 18 and someone makes you feel like the center of their universe, you don't see red flags. You see passion. You see intensity. You see the beginning of a love story. 3 months later, in December, Ryan officially asked me to be his girlfriend. He gave me a promise ring and told me he couldn't imagine life without me. I thought I had won the game. I had no idea the game was just beginning, and I was already losing. Ryan came from a financially comfortable family. He was an only child who always got everything he wanted. His mother, Patricia, or Trish, as everyone called her, had that way of smiling at you while making you feel inadequate. But I ignored it. Ryan seemed like everything my father wasn't. He didn't drink. He didn't yell. He didn't raise a hand against me, at least not at first. He was attentive, romantic, and jealous in a way I mistook for love. When I got off work at 6 p.m., he'd text me, "You have 20 minutes to get here." If I was late, he'd leave. Once it was pouring rain, and I called to say I'd wait for it to pass. "If you wait, I won't be here," he said. I walked through that storm, drenched, just so he wouldn't leave. I told myself this was love. Intense, all-consuming, can't live without you love. I'd see him kissing another girl and my blood would boil. But when he showed up at my door at 2 a.m., I'd let him in. He'd see me with another guy and punch a wall, and I'd still go home with him. We were toxic from day one, but I confused poison with passion. The first time he hit me is etched into my memory like an invisible scar. We had been officially together for 6 months when I caught him cheating. I saw him kissing another girl in a bar. I completely lost control and attacked her. I called my mom sobbing, terrified of what I'd done. On the drive home, still arguing in the car, Ryan turned and punched me in the face. In shock, I grabbed the steering wheel and jerked it to the side. We crashed into a pole. The car was totaled. My face was swollen and bruised. The next day, I had to go to work and lie. Attempted robbery, I told my boss, who had become like a mother to me. She looked at me with concern, but I couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. At 19, I was already trapped in the same cycle that had destroyed my mother. But here's the truth about abusive relationships that no one tells you. They're not abusive all the time. If they were, you'd leave. It's the good moments that keep you hooked. After hitting me, Ryan cried. He begged for forgiveness. He promised it would never happen again. He was gentle, attentive, perfect for weeks. I convinced myself it had been an accident. Over the next few years, we broke up and got back together more times than I can count. He'd cheat. I'd find out. We'd break up. He'd disappear for weeks, then show up at 3 a.m., and I'd let him back in. I tried to move on, but he always pulled me back. I gained weight. I went from a size 6 to a size 16. I avoided mirrors. The confident girl I used to be was disappearing, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. In 2019, everything finally collapsed. Ryan suddenly vanished. He said he was going to treatment and completely cut off contact. I was devastated. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think. I failed my final college exams, lost my job at the marketing agency where I had worked my way up to team lead, and got evicted from my apartment. At 23, I had to move back in with my mom. I felt like I had failed at everything. Months later, I discovered the truth. Ryan hadn't gone to treatment at all. He was living in another city with a woman who had 2 daughters, posting pictures like they were a perfect little family. He was doing all the things with her that he'd never done with me. Couple photos, romantic dinners, playing stepdad. I wanted to die. Literally. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't function. That's when I made a desperate decision. One that, in a way, saved my life at the time, even if I'd regret it later. I ran away to the Bahamas with a guy I barely knew, just to escape the pain. But the truth is, you can't run away from yourself, and you definitely can't run from a man like Ryan Mitchell. Because 8 months later, during the COVID pandemic, I would see him again in a bar in Tampa, and against every ounce of logic I had left, I would let him back into my life. I should have run that night. I should have deleted his number, blocked his name, and rebuilt my life from scratch. But I didn't, because deep down, I still believed that love could change everything, that he could change, that we could change. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The scars he would leave would cut even deeper. I would still cry alone on a bathroom floor, a baby in my arms, while he laughed at his phone beside another woman. Because the story that began with a glance across a bar in 2015 was about to become a nightmare that would destroy everything I thought I knew about love, family, and self-respect. And that night, when I saw him again and let him back into my life, something inside me whispered, soft, almost imperceptible, "You're not ready for what's coming." I ignored that voice. I ignored every sign. And by doing so, I handed Ryan the perfect opportunity to rewrite my life from the ground up, this time in even more painful chapters. Because what was coming next wasn't just another heartbreak. It was the complete destruction of the woman I had been, the future I had dreamed of, and the life I thought I was building. Because when he came back, he didn't just bring the past with him, he brought the storm, and I had no idea just how devastating it was going to be. August 2021. The pandemic was still going on, but in Florida, bars had their own underground way of surviving. You'd knock on the door, they'd let you in, lock it behind you, and inside, the world felt like it wasn't falling apart. I'd been going to this one spot for months, trying to drink away the ghost of Ryan, and for a while, it was working. I had a new remote job, my Etsy kids' clothing store was starting to grow, and for the first time in years, I was beginning to feel like myself again. That night, I walked into the bar, and there he was. 9 months had passed since I'd last seen him, and the moment our eyes met, my stomach dropped. He looked different, sober, for once, healthier. He saw me at the exact same moment, and I watched the color drain from his face. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn around and walk out, but my feet wouldn't move. We ended up talking that night, not about the past, not about the woman he had left me for, just small talk that somehow felt massive. He told me he had been working on himself, that he knew how badly he had messed everything up, and I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored every instinct begging me to run. By the end of the night, we were back at my place, and just like that, everything I swore I'd never do again, I did. The next day, something happened that changed everything. My uncle, my mom's brother, who had lived with us for years, died suddenly. My mom, Linda, called me sobbing. I was shattered, and Ryan was there. He helped plan the funeral, stayed close to my mom, held me when I cried. He was everything I needed in that moment. And just like that, we were back together. For a few months, things were almost good. We were older now. I was 24, he was 29, and the conversations about the future felt different. He was studying for the bar exam, determined to finally finish law school and pass. I was focused on my career and building my business. We talked about getting married, buying a house, having kids. It felt like maybe, just maybe, we had both grown up enough to make it work this time. That Christmas, we spent the holidays with his family at his dad's beach house. On Christmas night, we had sex, and I wasn't on birth control. I joked, "We should grab Plan B tomorrow. I'll probably get pregnant." He looked at me with this intense gaze and said, "If you do, that's fine with me." My heart soared. This was it, us finally being ready to build a life together. 2 weeks later, I took a pregnancy test. Positive. I showed it to Ryan, and his face went completely blank. No smile, no fear, no reaction, just emptiness. For 4 days, we barely spoke. We went to his mom's beach house to think, but really, we just existed in this heavy, suffocating silence. I was terrified to tell my mom. I was only 24, unmarried, still building my career, but I wanted this baby. Finally, Ryan suggested we tell Trish, but the reaction wasn't what I expected. His mother's face fell. There was no excitement, no congratulations, just silence. Then she and Ryan stepped away to talk privately, and I could hear them arguing. My stomach twisted into knots. When Ryan returned, he said, "I'm going to talk to my dad." He left, and I went upstairs to shower, trying to hold myself together. When he came back from his dad's house, he found me in the bedroom and said, "Baby, we're having this baby. My dad said I'd regret it forever if we didn't." I stopped mid-cry and asked, "Why? What changed?" It wasn't "I want this baby." It was "my dad said." But I was so desperate for him to want this pregnancy that I accepted it. I told myself it was enough. And for the entire first pregnancy with Liam, Ryan was perfect. He went to every single OB appointment, every ultrasound. He'd rest his hand on my belly and talk to the baby. He helped pick out every item for the nursery. He was excited, involved, present. When I had complications and was hospitalized for a week with severe migraines, he was there every day. Not all day. He still had bar prep. But he came, checked on me, brought me whatever I needed. Liam's birth was traumatic. I experienced severe obstetric violence. The doctor literally tore me with her hands during delivery. I had 30 stitches. The pain was indescribable. Liam was born prematurely with underdeveloped lungs because I'd had COVID just days before delivery. He went straight to the NICU and stayed there for 15 days. During that time, Ryan was my rock. He was 70% of my strength in that delivery room. He stayed by my side, advocated for me, took care of me afterward. Not a single day passed without him coming to the NICU with me. After we brought Liam home, Ryan continued to be an amazing dad. He changed diapers, gave baths, did night feedings when I pumped milk. He cooked because I hated cooking. That was our deal. I'd handle laundry and cleaning, and he'd cook and help with the baby. People would say, "Wow, you're so lucky to have a partner who helps so much." And I felt lucky. I felt like we'd finally made it. But slowly, things started to feel off. Ryan began going out more with his bar prep study group. He'd come home at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., a stumbling drunk, saying they were celebrating someone's practice exam score. His phone was always face down now. Always. He took it with him to the bathroom, even for a quick shower, and when it buzzed, he'd snatch it immediately, almost panicked. I was working from home now, leading a legal team of 12 people for a major marketing agency, despite not finishing my degree. I was making $7,000 a month. Professionally, I was thriving, but at home, I was drowning. Ryan had stopped helping as much. He'd sleep until noon, wake up, say he had to go to his study group, and wouldn't come back until the middle of the night. I was working full-time, caring for a baby, and slowly realizing something was very, very wrong. One Saturday morning, Liam was at my mom's house. Ryan told me he had to work. He'd started driving Uber and DoorDash to make extra money. He left Friday night, saying he'd be out all night. But when I called him Saturday morning, something felt off. His voice was distant, disconnected. My gut twisted. I texted our neighbor, who owned the restaurant next door. "Hey, is Ryan home? Can you knock on the door for me?" He didn't reply for hours. When he finally did, he said, "Sorry, I wasn't at the restaurant earlier." But he was always there. Always. When Ryan finally came home that Saturday afternoon, I checked the laundry hamper. His boxer shorts from Friday night were wet. Not damp. Wet. Like they'd been washed and not fully dried. The bathroom towel I'd left in a specific spot was in the exact same place. He hadn't showered at home. I texted him. "You didn't sleep here last night, did you?" He replied with a laughing emoji. "You're crazy, babe. Where else would I sleep?" But I knew. Deep in my bones, I knew. He'd been somewhere else. With someone else. And he was lying straight to my face. From that moment on, paranoia became my shadow. Every notification on his phone made my heart race. Every night he didn't come home until dawn chipped away at the fragile sense of security I was clinging to. He started deleting messages before he walked through the door. He changed his passwords. He stopped leaving his phone unattended. And yet, every time I confronted him, he flipped it back on me. "You're paranoid. You're insecure. You're trying to ruin what we have." And I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to. I told myself I was imagining things, that all couples go through phases. I blamed the stress of parenting, his bar exam pressure, even postpartum hormones. I made excuses because the alternative, that he was betraying me, was too painful to accept. I had fought so hard to build a family with this man, and I couldn't let myself believe it was all slipping away again. But deep down, I already knew. The Ryan who once jumped out of bed to help with night feedings now slept through Liam's cries. The man who once texted me 10 times a day to say he loved me now barely responded to my messages. The person who once felt like my anchor now felt like a stranger living in my house. And every time I reached for him, emotionally, physically, he pulled further away. I started sleeping with my phone under my pillow, hoping for some slip-up, some notification that would confirm what my heart already knew. Some nights, I'd stare at the glow of his screen reflected on the bedroom wall as he texted God knows who while I nursed our son. I'd lie awake, wondering how someone could share a bed, a child, a life with me, and still be somewhere else entirely. The final straw came one night when Liam was sick with a fever. I begged Ryan to stay home, but he said he had to meet his study group. "I'll be back by midnight," he promised. He didn't walk through the door until nearly 5 a.m. He smelled like alcohol and cologne that wasn't mine. He stumbled into bed, kissed my forehead, and fell asleep instantly, while I sat on the floor of our son's room, holding a cold washcloth to Liam's burning skin, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. That was the night I stopped denying the truth. The love story I had built in my head, the one where we grew stronger after hardship, where we became the family we always dreamed of, was a lie. The man lying next to me wasn't my partner. He was a ghost wearing Ryan's face. And the worst part? I had invited that ghost back into my life, believing he'd changed. But as the days went on, the lies grew louder than the silence. His excuses became rehearsed. His study sessions became entire weekends away. And no matter how much I begged for honesty, the gaslighting never stopped. I was losing myself again, piece by piece, in the exact same way I had the first time. And then, one morning, as I stood folding laundry and replaying every red flag I had ignored, something shifted inside me. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't insecurity. This was betrayal, plain and simple. And as much as I wanted to deny it, I knew there was more to this story than he was letting on, because deep down, I could feel it. The truth wasn't just hiding in his phone or his late nights. It was right in front of me, written all over his behavior. And sooner or later, I was going to find the proof I needed. And when I finally did, nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to discover. I started checking his phone obsessively whenever I had the chance. But Ryan had gotten smarter. He changed his passcode. He turned on Face ID so I couldn't unlock it while he slept. He started using hidden messaging apps and encrypted chats. It was like he was always one step ahead of me, and I was losing my mind trying to keep up. Every time I brought up my suspicions, he flipped the narrative. You're paranoid. You're insecure. You're ruining our family with your jealousy. And after hearing it enough times, part of me started to believe it. Then, in April 2024, 2 pink lines appeared on a pregnancy test. Again, I had been working so hard to lose the baby weight from Liam, going to the gym, feeling like myself again. My Etsy store was finally making real money. And then, just like that, everything shifted. I stared at that test in the bathroom, and instead of joy, all I felt was dread. When I told Ryan, his reaction was nothing. No smile, no concern, no emotion at all. We both knew things weren't good between us. Days passed without us even talking about it. Finally, I told him, I'm keeping the baby. That's when he exploded. He punched a hole in our bedroom door. We can't have this baby, Kayla. We can't afford it. I'm trying to pass the bar. This isn't the right time. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about timing. It wasn't about money or stress. He didn't want this baby because he was already planning his exit. I could feel it in the way he looked through me instead of at me, in how he flinched when I touched him, in how he smiled at messages I wasn't allowed to see. Something had shifted, and there was someone else in the picture. I just didn't have proof yet. This pregnancy was nothing like the first one. Ryan didn't come to a single doctor's appointment. Not one. I'd text him, hey, I have an ultrasound today at 2 p.m. Can you make it? And hours later he'd respond, can't. Studying. If I bought something for the baby, a tiny onesie, a blanket, he barely glanced at it. Cool, he'd say, eyes glued to his phone. Every day my heart cracked a little more. I slipped into a deep depression. I'd drop Liam off at preschool at 7 a.m., come home, and crawl into bed until 2 p.m. I wasn't eating. I wasn't functioning. My Etsy shop started falling apart because I couldn't focus. I'd lie in bed and think about how I had finally started putting my life back together, losing weight, feeling confident, finding myself again. And now I was going to be huge again, exhausted again, trapped again. At 3 months pregnant, the migraines returned, worse than before. I ended up hospitalized for a week. The neurologist told me I had severe tension headaches caused by psychological stress. My body was literally breaking down from the pressure. 2 glands in my head were swelling, causing unbearable pain. They kept me in the hospital, pumping me with medication, trying to bring the swelling down. Ryan visited maybe once a day for half an hour. I have to study. I have to watch Liam. I have to work. Always an excuse. Meanwhile, I was lying in a hospital bed, 3 months pregnant, in excruciating pain, missing my son, and completely alone. Other women had their partners sleeping in the chair beside them, bringing them meals, holding their hands. I had a husband who couldn't wait to leave. Trish started visiting more than Ryan did. She'd sit by my bed, hold my hand, and reassure me. He's just stressed about the bar exam, she'd say. He loves you so much, Kay. He's just going through a lot. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. So I built a story in my head. Ryan was under tremendous pressure. He was going to be a lawyer. He was doing all this to provide for us. This was temporary. Once he passed the bar, everything would go back to normal. But when I was discharged, nothing changed. If anything, things got worse. Ryan started disappearing for entire days. He'd say he was at study group or driving Uber, but he'd leave at 6 p.m. and not come home until 6 a.m. He'd stumble in smelling like alcohol, saying he'd been celebrating with classmates. I'd check our bank statements and find charges for hotels, restaurants, bars. It's just the study group, he'd say. Always the study group. One night, I attended a barbecue organized by the wives of some bar prep students. I was heavily pregnant, exhausted, but I wanted to feel normal, to understand what his world looked like when he wasn't home. The wives all complained about the same things. Their husbands staying out until 3 a.m., coming home drunk, being distant and distracted. One woman pulled me aside and whispered, That program is full of women who don't respect marriages. The girls at the front desk are the worst. My husband cheated with one. I took him back because our son was diagnosed with autism. But I hate those women. Her words hit me like a bucket of ice water. She knew. She was warning me. But the other wives brushed it off. Just guys being guys, blowing off steam during a stressful time. I didn't know what to think anymore. Was I paranoid? Was this just how the bar prep culture worked? Or was my gut right all along? In November, just 1 month before Lily was due, I lost my job. The marketing agency I'd worked so hard for went under, and suddenly I had no income except for my Etsy shop. I was terrified. Ryan promised, "Don't worry, baby. I'll work more. I'll pick up extra Uber shifts. We'll be fine." But he didn't work more. He was gone more, but the money never came. Meanwhile, Trish started covering expenses. Baby items, groceries, bills. I was grateful, but I was also humiliated. I had always been independent, and now I was completely dependent on my mother-in-law's charity. My due date was December 21st. I was stressed beyond belief about money, Ryan's distance, and how we would survive with 2 kids and no stable income. Ryan kept saying, "Once I pass the bar in January, everything will change. I'll get a great job. We'll buy a house. I'll propose. Just hold on, Kay. Just hold on." I clung to those words like they were a lifeline. Just hold on. A few more weeks. Then everything would be okay. On December 2nd, my birthday, Ryan surprised me with dinner. He invited my family over first, then took me out alone. I remember sitting across from him at that restaurant and realizing we had nothing to talk about. Nothing. Every conversation circled back to the bar exam. I'd try to talk about the baby, and he'd change the subject. I'd mention Liam, and he'd glance down at his phone. We sat in silence for long stretches, and I felt lonelier sitting across from my husband than I ever had by myself. Still, he said all the right things. "I love you. I can't wait to meet our daughter. Once this exam is over, I'm all yours." He'd text me during the day, "Hey baby, just got to study group. Love you." Or thinking about you and our girl. On the surface, everything looked fine, but beneath it, I was drowning, and no one could see me thrashing beneath the water. I kept telling myself, just hold on until Christmas. Just hold on until the baby comes. Just hold on until he passes the bar. Just hold on. But deep inside, I knew I was lying to myself. Nothing was going to change. Passing the bar wouldn't fix the distance between us. A new job wouldn't make him love me again. A proposal wouldn't erase the betrayal I could feel lurking beneath every late night and every excuse. I was clinging to a version of Ryan that no longer existed. Maybe never had. The tension in the house was unbearable. We barely spoke. When we did, it was about logistics. Bills, Liam's schedule, doctor appointments. The intimacy was gone. The trust was gone. And I was slipping deeper into a dark, heavy fog I couldn't shake. I'd catch myself crying while folding baby clothes. I'd stand in the nursery staring at the crib and wonder if I was strong enough to raise 2 children on my own. Every part of me wanted to believe that things would get better, that the man who once promised me the world would remember his promises. But the truth is, I had already lost him. And the scariest part was, I was starting to lose myself too. By mid-December, I was counting down the days not to meet my daughter, but to the end of the waiting. I just wanted the waiting to be over. Waiting for him to show up. Waiting for him to care. Waiting for a version of our life that was never going to happen. I tried to talk to my mom about it once. I told her I was scared, that I felt like something was deeply wrong but couldn't prove it. She held my hand and said, "Kayla, love isn't supposed to feel like waiting." Her words stuck with me. They echoed in my head every time Ryan walked out the door, every time I cried myself to sleep, every time I looked at my son and wondered what kind of example I was setting. I had no idea then how right she was, because what came next would destroy any illusion I still had left about the man I was married to, and the life I thought we were building. And just when I thought things couldn't possibly get worse, the night of December 3rd proved me wrong, in ways I could never have imagined. On December 3rd, the day after my birthday, I started leaking fluid. I called Ryan, panicking. "I think my water's breaking." He was at his study group. Just go to the hospital. I'll meet you there. But when I arrived, the doctor said it wasn't time yet and sent me home. The next day, December 4th, my water fully broke. I called Ryan again. He came to pick me up, and we headed to the county hospital, the same one where I'd had Liam. I was terrified of another traumatic birth. The obstetric violence from Liam's delivery had left me with PTSD. I had specifically asked for a C-section this time, but the hospital kept trying to induce labor for a vaginal birth. They pumped me full of medication to trigger contractions, but nothing happened. I spent the entire night in labor that wasn't progressing. Ryan stayed, but he was different now. Distant. Cold. He sat on his phone for hours, barely glancing at me. The next morning, December 5th, he said, "I'm going home to shower. My dad's coming from the beach house to visit you." He left, and I labored alone for hours. His dad eventually arrived, sitting awkwardly by my bedside. Contractions started to build, painful, intense, but I kept breathing through them, still hoping for the C-section I'd begged for. I texted Ryan, "Please come back. The contractions are getting worse." He replied, "I'm on my way, just finishing something." By noon, the contractions were unbearable. I begged the nurses, "Please, just give me the C-section, please." But it was too late. I dilated too much. I was going to have to deliver vaginally, and I was terrified. Ryan finally showed up, but there was none of the tenderness he'd shown during Liam's birth. He stood there like a man fulfilling an obligation, not like a partner about to welcome his daughter into the world. At one point, I was in the shower, moaning through the pain, and he stood in the doorway scrolling on his phone, occasionally glancing at me as if I were a stranger. Lily was born at 3:47 p.m. on December 5th, 2024. She was perfect, tiny, healthy, beautiful. I cried when they placed her on my chest, but they weren't just tears of joy. They were tears of relief that she was okay, grief that this birth was nothing like Liam's, exhaustion from more than 24 hours of labor, and a bone-deep sadness that the man standing across the room felt like a stranger. We went home 2 days later. The plan was to host Christmas at our house. I had invited my whole family because I knew I'd be recovering. My mom, Linda, my stepdad, my siblings, everyone was coming. But the day we returned home from the hospital, Ryan's behavior grew even stranger. He'd leave Lily and me in the bedroom and disappear for hours. When I'd find him, he was on his phone, always on his phone, smiling, typing, completely disconnected. One night, around 2 a.m., he came home drunk. Lily was crying. I was trying to breastfeed her, and Liam had woken up scared. I was completely overwhelmed. It had been less than a week since I'd given birth. I called for Ryan to help. He finally stumbled into the room. I asked him to hold Lily so I could use the bathroom. He took her, but sighed heavily, irritated. When I came back, he said, "Your excuse for everything is going to be the baby now, isn't it?" I froze, holding our week-old daughter in my arms. "What did you just say?" I asked. He repeated it. "Now every time I need something, you're going to use the baby as an excuse." That was the moment something inside me broke. I started sobbing. Not just tears, but a full-body breakdown. I took Lily from him and walked outside so the kids wouldn't hear me fall apart. He followed me, still talking. Words I can't even remember, because I was crying too hard to process them. All I know is that, in that moment, I knew. He didn't love me anymore. There was someone else. Our marriage was over. 2 days later, on December 10th, we had to rush Lily back to the hospital. She had developed severe jaundice and needed to be admitted to the NICU. I was devastated. My baby was barely a week old and already back in the hospital. Ryan drove us there, got us checked in, and then said, "I have to go to my study group. Call me when you know what's going on." And he left me there, alone, with our newborn in intensive care. I stayed at the hospital for the next 5 days, as Lily's bilirubin levels slowly came down. Ryan visited maybe an hour a day. The rest of the time, I sat alone in that tiny NICU room, pumping breast milk, staring at my jaundiced baby under blue lights, wondering how my life had turned into this. Other mothers had partners sleeping in chairs, bringing them food, comforting them. I had a husband who couldn't get away fast enough. The next morning, I confronted him again. What's going on? You won't touch me. You pulled away when I sat on your lap. You won't hold me at night. He sighed, like I was exhausting him. Kayla, I'm anxious about the bar exam. That's it. I'm stressed. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. Stop reading into everything. And like a fool, I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to. I told myself, just get through Christmas. Just get through the next 2 weeks. Once the exam is over, he'll come back to me. He has to. On December 3rd, the day after my birthday, I started leaking fluid. I called Ryan, panicked. I think my water is breaking. He was at his study group. Just go to the hospital. I'll meet you there. But when I got there, the doctor said it wasn't time yet and sent me home. The next day, December 4th, my water fully broke. I called Ryan again. He came to pick me up, and we headed to the county hospital where I'd had Liam. I was terrified of another traumatic birth. The obstetric violence from Liam's delivery had left me with PTSD. I had specifically asked for a C-section this time, but the hospital kept trying to induce me for a vaginal birth. They pumped me with medication to start contractions, but nothing was happening. I spent all night in labor that wasn't progressing. Ryan stayed with me, but he was different. Cold. Distant. He sat on his phone for hours, barely looking at me. The next morning, December 5th, he said, "I'm going home to shower. My dad's coming from the beach house to visit you." He left, and I labored alone for hours. His dad came, sat with me awkwardly. I was having contractions now, painful ones, but I was trying to breathe through them because I was still hoping for that C-section. I texted Ryan, "Please come back. I'm having bad contractions." He replied, "I'm coming, just finishing something." Around noon, the contractions became unbearable. I begged the nurses, "Please, just give me the C-section. Please." But I had dilated too much. It was too late. I was going to have to deliver vaginally, and I was absolutely terrified. Ryan finally showed up, but there was none of the tenderness from Liam's birth. He stood there like he was obligated to be present, not like he wanted to be. At one point, I was in the shower, trying to manage the pain, and he was literally on his phone in the doorway, just standing there, scrolling, occasionally glancing at me. Lily was born at 3:47 p.m. on December 5th, 2024. She was perfect, small, healthy, beautiful. I cried when they placed her on my chest, but they were complicated tears. Relief that she was okay, grief that this birth had been so different from Liam's, exhaustion from laboring for over 24 hours, and a bone-deep sadness that the man standing across the room was supposed to be my partner, but felt like a stranger. We went home 2 days later. The plan had been to host Christmas at our house. I had invited my whole family because I knew I'd be in recovery. My mom, Linda, my stepdad, my siblings, everyone was coming. But the day we got home from the hospital, Ryan started acting even stranger. He would leave Lily and me in the bedroom and disappear for hours. When I found him, he was on his phone, always on his phone, smiling and typing quickly. One night, around 2 a.m., he came home drunk. Lily was crying. I was trying to breastfeed, and Liam had woken up scared. I was completely overwhelmed. It had been less than a week since giving birth. I called for Ryan to help, and he finally stumbled into the room. I asked him to hold Lily while I used the bathroom. He took her but was irritated, sighing heavily. When I came back, he said, "Your excuse for everything is going to be the baby now, isn't it?" I stared at him, holding our week-old daughter, and asked, "What did you just say?" He repeated it. "Now anytime I need something, you're going to use the baby as an excuse." I started crying, not just tears, but full-body sobbing. I took Lily from him and went outside so the kids wouldn't hear me fall apart. He followed me out and started saying things I can't even fully remember because I was crying so hard. All I know is that in that moment, I knew. I knew he didn't love me anymore. I knew there was someone else. I knew our marriage was over. 2 days later, on December 10th, we had to take Lily back to the hospital. She had developed severe jaundice and needed to be admitted to the NICU. I was devastated. My baby was barely a week old and already back in the hospital. Ryan drove us there, got us checked in, and then said, "I have to go to my study group. Call me when you know what's happening." And he left me there with our newborn daughter in the NICU, alone. I stayed at the hospital for the next 5 days, as Lily's bilirubin levels slowly came down. Ryan would visit for maybe an hour a day. The rest of the time, I was by myself in that tiny NICU room, pumping breast milk, staring at my jaundiced baby under blue lights, wondering how my life had become this. Other mothers had their partners staying with them, sleeping in chairs, bringing them food. I had a husband who couldn't get away fast enough. On Friday, December 13th, Ryan called me and said, "My mom won't watch Liam tonight so I can work. I need to work, Kayla. We need money." I was exhausted, scared, and desperate for help. I said, "Take him to my mom's house in Lakeland. She'll watch him and you can work until I'm discharged." He agreed. He dropped Liam off with Linda, texted me that he was back on the road working, and then I didn't hear from him for hours. At 1:30 a.m., he texted, "Just finishing my last ride. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed when I get home. Love you." I replied, "Wait, you're not going to FaceTime me first? I've been here alone all day." There was a long pause. Then, "Fine, I'll call when I get home." But when he called 30 minutes later, it was audio only, not video. His voice sounded strange, rushed. "Hey babe, I'm home. I'm going to bed. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you." Something felt wrong, but I was so tired I couldn't even process it. The next morning, I tried calling Ryan around 9 a.m. No answer. I called again at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon. Nothing. Finally, at 1 p.m., he answered with a video call. He was sitting on our couch, looking like he had just woken up. "Sorry, baby. I was exhausted. I slept hard. But something was off." I texted our restaurant neighbor again. "Hey, sorry to bother you, but was Ryan's car there this morning?" Hours later, the neighbor replied, "I wasn't at the restaurant this morning, sorry." But I knew that man was always at his restaurant, every single morning, which meant he was covering for Ryan, which meant Ryan's car hadn't been there. Sunday morning, December 15th, they discharged Lily. Ryan came to pick us up. On the drive home, I asked him, "Did you really sleep at home Friday night?" He looked at me with such convincing confusion. "Yes, Kayla. Why are you doing this? Why do you keep accusing me of things? I'm exhausted. I'm stressed and you're making everything worse." I second-guessed myself. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe postpartum hormones were making me crazy. Maybe I was the problem. So I dropped it. That night, Ryan put 2 lawn chairs in front of our house. The restaurant next door was having live music, and we could hear it from our yard. My stepdad came over, and the 3 of us sat outside, just listening. At one point, I went to sit on Ryan's lap. He stood up immediately, walked inside, and came back with another chair. "Here, sit in this." He physically moved me off of him. I felt humiliation burn through my entire body. That night, after everyone left, I tried to cuddle with him in bed. He was lying there with his arms open, and when I nestled into his chest, he literally opened his arms wider, not to hold me, but to avoid touching me. The next morning, I confronted him again. "What's going on? You won't touch me. You pulled away when I sat on your lap. You won't hold me at night." He sighed, like I was draining every ounce of his patience. "Kayla, I'm anxious about the bar exam. That's it. I'm stressed. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. Stop reading into everything." And like a fool, I believed him. Or maybe I needed to. I told myself, just get through Christmas. Just get through the next 2 weeks. Once the exam is over, he'll come back to me. He has to. But deep down, something inside me already knew. The man I'd loved for nearly a decade was gone. The person sleeping next to me wasn't my partner anymore. He was a stranger I couldn't reach. And yet, I kept clinging to the scraps. Because that's what we do when we're drowning. We hold on to anything that floats, even if it's the very thing pulling us under. I kept replaying every excuse he gave me, every time he deflected, every time he turned my suspicions back on me. I kept hoping that one morning, I'd wake up and find him staring at me like he used to. That one day, he'd reach for my hand without hesitation. That one night, he'd hold me while I slept, and I'd feel safe again. But that day never came. Christmas was just 10 days away, And instead of joy, I felt dread. Instead of love, I felt distance. And instead of hope, I felt the slow, creeping realization that our story wasn't a love story anymore. It was a slow-motion collapse. And I was standing in the wreckage, pretending everything was fine. Because the alternative, admitting that the man I'd built my life around no longer wanted me, was too unbearable to face. I told myself, just get through Christmas. Just get through the next 2 weeks. Just get through the bar exam. Just hold on. But I had no idea that the worst, the real, soul-shattering worst, was still waiting for me on the other side of that calendar. The message arrived like a whisper that turned into a siren. I opened the preview on my iPad, and the photo loaded slowly. Him in a motel parking lot, hair wet, wearing a different t-shirt than the one he'd left home in. A woman's hand holding his just out of frame. The name at the top cut like a blade. Amber. I felt a clean, almost clinical nausea. There was no room left for maybe. I was holding the map of my own humiliation. The next night, the eve of my birthday, I said very little. I just observed. The way he hid his phone the second I walked into the room. The pillow that smelled like a perfume that wasn't mine. The laugh that escaped him involuntarily as he typed. Every detail was a compass pointing away from me. I walked through the house like someone collecting evidence from a fire that hadn't yet started. Inside, the flames had already begun. On the 24th, the house was full. My mom was in the kitchen, my stepdad setting up a portable crib, Liam running barefoot after a toy truck. Lily slept, curled up like a small moon, in the stroller by the sofa. At midnight, I hugged everyone, searching for a ground strong enough to hold the weight of my head. Ryan smiled and said, "I wish your life is really good. Not our." I froze, holding a mug of hot chocolate. It was a blessing that sounded like a goodbye. The kitchen went silent, the last laugh echoing down the hallway. He had left his iPhone on the counter, unlocked. The screen lit up. "Can't stop thinking about you. Last night was perfect." I opened the conversation. There were videos, voice messages, locations, timestamps that lined up with the study groups, restaurant names, a motel receipt sent as a PDF. My hands shook, but my eyes stayed cold. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I just closed the fridge, picked up the phone, and walked to the bedroom. When I came back, he was standing in the bathroom doorway, a towel around his waist. "Can you leave? I'm naked," he said, as if I were an intruder in my own marriage. I showed him the iPhone. "Is it Amber?" I asked. He froze. His pupils widened. His face went pale. And in an instant, the man standing in front of me became a stranger performing a rehearsed routine. Deny, deflect, humiliate. "You're paranoid. That's old. That's fake. You're trying to destroy our family on Christmas." The night was a windowless corridor. Lily cried. Liam screamed, "I want my daddy." And Ryan typed on his phone with his back against the headboard, laughing every now and then. Around 4 a.m, I held Lily to my chest and cried silently. When the sun came up, the house had a metallic taste. My mom crossed my path in the hallway and asked with her eyes. I shook my head. She understood. She made coffee, held the chaos together for a few hours, and gave me the simplest miracle: time to breathe. 2 days later, we went to his father's beach house. The excuse: to make peace, to think clearly. The wind was salty, and I rode a bike along the boardwalk, my body still sore from giving birth, and my mind like a detuned radio. Trish hugged me on the porch, cried with me, said she was on my side. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to so badly. Until on the second afternoon, she stopped in front of me, wiped away her tears, and said, almost gently, "I know the woman, and she's everything I always wished you could be." The words came in a patient, cruel sequence. She takes care of her body. She cooks. She's an amazing mom and homemaker. Face-wise, you're a 10 to her 0. But she has a beautiful body. I didn't reply. The sound of the ocean went hollow, as if someone had turned off the soundtrack of life. I nodded, thanked her for nothing, went upstairs, and lay down without sleeping. The next day, I left Liam and Lily with them, and took the bike. I asked the wind for an answer that could only come from within. I rode for 2 straight hours. At every block, a phrase echoed, "I'm going to get out of this. I need to get out of this. I will not live like this." I stopped in front of the ocean and understood one simple, brutal truth. It wasn't me who was too small for love. It was that love that was too small for me. I wasn't lazy or boring or ugly. I was an incredible mother, an excellent professional, a woman who left home at 17 and paid her own bills ever since. Maybe I never wanted to be a homemaker, and that was okay. I was alive, and alive enough to choose. I returned home on Tuesday and began. I picked up a box, then another, and another. Every folded shirt, every hastily shoved pair of pants, every pair of shoes, every reminder of the man I once imagined existed. I cried and repeated out loud, "I will not live like this. I will not live like this." I carried each box to the garage as if carrying a body to sacred ground. By the end of the day, the closet was almost empty. For the first time in years, the mirror in the bedroom reflected my own face back at me. That night, he came home and found the pile. "What's this?" I breathed deeply. "It's the end." He laughed, bitter and angry. "You won't last on your own. You'll come running back. You always do." I didn't reply. I walked to Lily's crib, fixed her blanket, kissed Liam on the head. My silence was a brand new border. The next day, I called a lawyer a friend had recommended. "I'm expensive," he warned. "I can't pay everything right now," I said. My sister wired $3,500 that same day. I cried looking at the receipt. Love has receipts too. At the office, the lawyer listened to everything in silence. "In 15 years, I've never seen a mother begging for co-parenting while the father runs away," he finally said. "We filed for child support. I started therapy. I went back on Zoloft under psychiatric supervision. 2 pills a day until the panic attacks stabilized. I set a timer on my phone to remind me to eat every 3 hours and programmed the coffee maker to force myself out of bed. My days slowly formed the skeleton of a small survivor. Water, shower, 4 store orders, 2 pages of journaling, half an hour of stretching with Lily on the mat. On the 3rd day of packing boxes, I received a notification from the co-parenting app my lawyer had told me to install. Ryan had written, "You're alienating the kids. I'm going to file for sole custody." I laughed out loud in the kitchen, a short, disbelieving laugh. I replied, "Do you want custody of me or the kids? Because you don't even show up to say goodnight." He stopped responding. Hours later, another message. "From now on, only communicate here." I typed okay and felt lighter than I ever had after any "I love you" we'd shared. Trish tried calling. I didn't answer. She sent long messages. Her voice sounded comforting, but her words cut like knives. "You need to take care of yourself, Kay. Look at Amber, how she takes care of herself." I blocked her. Then I called my mom. "Come home today," she said. "Bring the kids. We'll figure it out." And we did. Liam fell asleep in the car with his tiny fingers still gripping the giant teddy bear that a friend had given to Lily. I looked in the rearview mirror and whispered, "I'm going to learn how to be home." Small victories began to appear. I got a quick hearing. The judge looked through the papers, read the app transcripts, and shook his head. Parental alienation claim denied. The mother is, in fact, asking for participation. Temporary child support was granted. I left the courthouse hugging my sister, clutching wrinkled documents in my hands, and breathing air that, for the first time in a long time, didn't hurt going in. That night, Lily slept for 8 straight hours, and so did I. He reacted the way men like him do, when they realize control is slipping away, by shifting shapes. One day, sweet messages, "I miss you. I miss our family." The next, threats, "You can't live without me. You'll crawl back." Then self-pity, "You destroyed me." I learned not to reply in the heat of the moment. Just document. Just breathe. Just move forward. I bought an accordion file folder to organize receipts, screenshots, timestamps. Every invisible act of violence would now leave a trail. One Friday afternoon, he showed up unannounced. Amber sitting in the passenger seat of the car for the kids' pickup. "She wants to meet Lily," he said, as if offering poisoned candy. I took a breath and kept my voice low. "The kids will deal with her presence on their time. I don't have to deal with her at all. You'll park the car. I'll bring the kids out. and you'll stay inside." He laughed, annoyed, but did as I asked. Liam cried in my arms and asked, "When is Daddy coming home?" I hugged him so tightly I felt my own ribs press together. "Daddy's house is there. Ours is here. And Mommy always comes back," I whispered. The lawyer advised me to keep everything in writing, to avoid provocations, to prioritize the visitation schedule and the kids' well-being. My therapist gave me a task: write 2 versions of my story, the one that kept me trapped and the one that set me free. In the first, I was the not enough woman who couldn't cook, didn't have the right body, and didn't deserve loyalty. In the second, I was the woman who had survived the impossible, who had loved down to the bone, and who, when love turned into a blade, knew how to let go. I chose the second. I signed it with my own name, as if signing it in bold, Kayla Morgan. The following week, I received an email from the court, with the timeline for the agreement. I was sitting on the living room floor, assembling packages for the store when I read the dates. A strange peace washed over me. It wasn't happiness. It was ground. It was structure. I picked up my phone to text my mom, and before unlocking it, a notification popped up. From the same number he always used for study. "Can we talk? I have a proposal." I almost ignored it. Almost. But I opened it. The proposal wasn't about money or dividing time with the kids. It was about me. "If you drop the child support case and stop the legal process, I'll come back home. Amber already knows." And for the first time since it all began, my hands didn't shake as I typed my reply. But what I said next would change the course of the war he was about to declare. The day after that proposal email, I wrote the shortest reply of my life. "No, my dignity is not for sale." I closed the laptop, spread a diaper out on the rug, and built a mental checklist: lawyer, therapy, co-parenting app, expense spreadsheet, kids routine, store orders. It wasn't heroism, it was survival with a to-do list. If my life had turned into rubble, I would start by sweeping the floor. I opened an accordion folder and labeled everything: child support, receipts, screenshots, pickup times, app messages. Each tab was a piece of my sanity I was reclaiming from the chaos. My therapist taught me to measure progress in inches, not miles. Take a shower with the door half open because Liam followed me like a shadow. Prepare 2 kits in the middle of the night, one for feedings and one for store orders. Lie down and breathe for 4 minutes without checking my phone. I implemented a war regime at home. Simple, repeatable routines. 6 a.m. water, 7 a.m. snack, 8 a.m. print labels, 9 a.m. pack orders with Lily in the sling, 10 a.m. drop Liam off at preschool, 11 a.m. return to sew and separate orders, 2 p.m. quick nap with an alarm, 3 p.m. reply to clients, 5 p.m. kids' bath time, 8 p.m. silence and dim lights. I no longer expected to feel like doing it. I just did. The motivation would come later, if it wanted to be kind. My lawyer called with updates. We filed for support, and I contested the parental alienation claim. I told him about Ryan's proposal for me to drop the lawsuits. He took a deep breath. Record everything in the app. Only in the app. I wrote that on a piece of paper and taped it to the fridge. No phone calls, no voice notes. Written only. I needed to stop being a battlefield and start being a file cabinet. On the first weekend after packing up the boxes, Ryan showed up to pick up Liam and Lily with his car parked at the curb, Amber in the passenger seat. He looked at me as if testing an alarm. "She wants to meet Lily." I held the gate, took a deep breath, and spoke firmly, quietly. "The kids can deal with her presence when they're with you. I don't need to deal with her here. You park. I'll put the kids in the car. She stays inside." He made a face, but he stayed put. I was trembling on the inside and didn't show it on the outside. Victory number 1. The visits turned into a patience game. He'd confirm a pickup time and cancel half an hour before. Work, mock exam, headache. I logged everything. Liam regressed in his potty training and started waking up screaming in the middle of the night. "I want my daddy! When is daddy coming home?" I held him until his chest calmed, then cried quietly in the hallway, turning on a dim light so I wouldn't ignite the full weight of my guilt. The store exploded. 20, 30 orders a day, new names on the dashboard. adorable photos of babies wearing my designs. I printed labels with tears hanging from my chin and a stubborn pride burning in my chest. I was paying the bills, alone, in the middle of a hurricane. The money was still tight, but now it had direction. Cut the luxuries, keep the essentials, diapers, rent, therapy, lawyer. I decided to swap the apartment for a smaller house. The move took 3 trips and a lot of packing tape. I returned to the gym with my doctor's approval. Twice a week when Trish, before the final cut, would watch the kids for a few hours. It wasn't about my body. It was about conquering 3 full treadmill songs without thinking of him. The mirror still surprised me, sometimes cruel, sometimes merciful. I'm not who I was at 18, I'd tell my reflection, but I'm finding my way back to myself. Amber became an active but peripheral presence, appearing through the car window during pickups, showing up briefly in video calls, waving a small hi like a mosquito landing on glass. I answered with surgical silence. If she tried to speak to me, I repeated the script. My communication is with the children's father, and only through the app. And I hung up. I discovered that silence is a language too, and mine was finally sharp. The provocations came as a tasting menu. Sweet day, I miss you. Salty day, you'll crawl back. Bitter day, you destroyed our family. I read them, let the emotions pass like an unruly wave, and replied with 3 words. As agreed, tomorrow. My therapist taught me to breathe before hitting send. I added a small prayer, that my son would grow up remembering my calm, not my rage. Liam was still struggling. He wouldn't let my stepdad park in the driveway. That's Daddy's spot. He built barricades out of his toy cars near the door. I learned to translate that language. I'd pick him up and walk around the house narrating, Daddy's house is there. Our house is here. Mommy always comes back. Mommy always comes back. We started a new ritual, drawing maps with 2 hearts connected by a road. He'd color them in, and in those crayon lines I could see my own path home. In court, the judge flipped through the pages of our war printed in black ink. He looked at me, then at him. In 15 years, I rarely see the roles reversed. Here, the mother is begging for co-parenting while the father runs away. The alienation claim fell like a rotten fruit. Temporary child support granted. I signed the documents with a pen that kept skipping, yet the signature still came out firm. I walked out of the courthouse and breathed in the hot parking lot air like it was a mountain summit. Cutting Trish out of my life was the strangest cut of all. The woman who once comforted me was now the same one who poured salt on my wounds with a smile. I blocked her. My mother became my anchor. She organized shifts, reminded me to take my meds, made chicken soup that smelled like childhood. Sometimes, while I packed orders in the middle of the night, she'd appear in the doorway, fix my hair, and say, "You're making the impossible look like routine." I'd give her a crooked smile. She was right. One Sunday, he showed up with flowers. "Can we talk?" I sat outside, where the wind carries leftover words far away. He started, "I can come back, organize our finances, we can fix this. Amber understands." I laughed softly. "This house is too clean for the mess you bring." He hardened. "You can't do this without me." I pointed to the stack of store boxes, to Lily's stroller, to Liam's drawings on the wall. "I already am." Amber eventually crossed the glass boundary. During one pickup, she got out of the car. "Can I talk to you for a second? I don't want any problems." My skin crawled on the inside, but my voice stayed steady. "You don't talk to me. My agreement is with the children's father." She tried again. "I could be a good influence on Liam." I cut her off. "You can disappear from my gate." I turned around, locked the gate, and only felt my hands stop trembling once they touched the wooden door. The date of the big hearing arrived. I wore black pants that didn't press on my scar, a simple blouse, hair tied back. I sat behind my lawyer and kept my eyes on the courtroom clock to remind myself that everything passes. Ryan walked in with the same empty folder and the same cologne that now made me nauseous. The judge asked him to explain his request. "You're requesting full custody for..." He flipped through the pages. "For the mother?" A murmur rippled through the room. Ryan cleared his throat, confused. I folded my hands in my lap and waited for the next lie. He lifted his eyes and said, "Yeah, That's what I meant. The judge tilted his head. Then why are you accusing her of alienation and simultaneously requesting full custody for her? The silence weighed like lead, and the next sentence that came out of Ryan's mouth would not only reveal the plan behind it all, but also determine the size of the freedom I was about to claim. The day of the final hearing arrived with a different kind of silence. It wasn't the silence of fear or humiliation. It was the silence of someone who knows that, no matter what happens in that courtroom, she's already won the hardest battle, the battle of not giving up on herself. I walked into the courthouse with Lily asleep in her car seat, and Liam gripping my finger tightly. For the first time in years, I felt that his grip wasn't dependence. It was an alliance. The decision took less than 20 minutes. Child support was made official. Joint custody was granted with every clause I had requested. The parental alienation claim was rejected as baseless and made in bad faith. When the judge ended the session, I closed my eyes and let a single tear fall, not out of sadness, but relief. I didn't have to scream, beg, or crawl. Justice had been served, and I remained whole. In the days that followed, life slowly began to rearrange itself into a new rhythm. The Etsy shop surpassed everything I had imagined. More than 30 orders a day, loyal customers, custom requests. I transformed a corner of the living room into an office and painted the wall a warm yellow. It was my way of telling myself, this is the place where everything begins again. Liam started to improve little by little. He still asked about his dad every night, but the nightmares grew fewer. We created a new bedtime ritual. He would draw something that made him happy, and I would tell a story where the characters always found their way home. Even when they get lost? He'd ask. Especially when they get lost, I'd reply. Lily grew quickly, calm as always. Sometimes I'd watch her sleep and think about all the things she would never remember. The tears, the fear, the pain. She would only know the version of her mother who rebuilt the world with her own hands. And that, more than any revenge, was my greatest victory. I went back to school online, studying in the time that remained between orders and bottles. I picked up the law degree I had abandoned years before, not to prove anything to Ryan or to the world, but because that 17-year-old girl who left home with a suitcase and a dream deserved to see her story completed. Taking care of myself became a priority, not a luxury. I went back to therapy, both psychological and spiritual. I returned to the gym with consistency. I traded oversized clothes for outfits that made me feel beautiful, even with scars and stretch marks. I bought a red lipstick just because I could. These small victories, added together, reminded me every single day, I am enough. I always have been. Amber kept existing, in video calls, on visitation days, in the passenger seat. But the difference was that she no longer provoked any emotion in me. No hatred, no envy. She was just a detail in a story that no longer defined me. Ryan also lost the power to shake me. Now, when he tried to provoke me, I answered with the same sentence. Please, keep all communication in the app. It was my elegant way of saying, you don't live here anymore. With time, new things began to bloom. I was invited to sell my baby clothes at a local market and ended up making friendships that are now an essential part of my support system. One of them, Julia, opened our first physical store with me. Small, charming, but ours. I remember calling my mom, crying in the parking lot. I did it, Mom. I really did it. And then, on an ordinary day, something unexpected happened. I met someone. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. Just a single dad who bought clothes for his daughter and stayed to talk. No promises, no urgency. Just two people exchanging stories and laughing at simple jokes. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking for love. I was open to finding it, and that changes everything. There are still hard days. Sometimes fear returns disguised as a memory. Sometimes loneliness weighs heavy. Sometimes seeing Ryan happy with someone else still hurts. But the difference is that now I know that pain doesn't destroy me. It passes. And when it passes, what remains is something far greater: peace. The new house doesn't have the expensive couch we bought together, or the giant TV he took, but it has walls painted by me, Liam's drawings taped to them, and a little corner full of Lily's toys. It smells like coffee in the morning and echoes with small laughs by the end of the day. It's smaller, but it holds everything that matters. Sometimes, I catch myself thinking about that 18-year-old girl who believed love was synonymous with pain, who confused control with care and jealousy with passion. If I could go back and whisper in her ear, I'd say, "You don't have to shrink yourself to fit inside someone else. The love that deserves you will grow beside you, not make you smaller." Today, when I look back, I don't see failure. I see courage. I see every sleepless night, every tear, every hard decision as steps that brought me here. I am no longer the woman who begged to be chosen. I am the woman who chose herself. And that changed everything. If you're listening to my story and see yourself in it, please listen with an open heart. You are not alone. I also thought I'd never get out. I also believed I was too weak, too dependent, too broken. But here I am, whole, free, and starting over. If I managed to walk out of that place and rebuild my life from scratch with 2 children in my arms and a shattered heart, believe me, you can too. The door is right there. All you need is the courage to turn the handle. And on the other side of it, there's a version of you ready to live in peace.